So in this video I'll be showing you guys how to assemble the final kind of triple button body. So I have two sets of them here because I'll be, making two of them, one for the office and one for home. So we want to start off with the magnets because doing them later on is going to be quite tricky. So I'm using the same system as for the body and the head. So you can see I did one of them already. Now you shouldn't have any issues doing this piece here. You will only have issues with this piece because this is printed like this, right? So there are supports under here, and these supports they don't make the surface kind of super flat like they do here, whereas here it's like, super flat. So for example, if I were to grab one of these magnets and just put it in here, it will just fall in place just fine. However, if you were to do it here without any post-processing, this actually won't fit in. So what you need to do is you need to get like a knife or something, and then you need to kind of scrape. Okay, it's kind of hard to see on camera because this is a translucent surface, but you see there's like a hole here, and then you need to kind of like scrape this part here to make it flat until the magnet, as you can see, sits flush with this. Now if you can make this as flush as possible, what this will guarantee is when you put this back, when you snap it back, it will, sit very flush. So in this case, I've already put in the magnets here and let them dry out. And I have assembled one of these pieces and let it dry out as well. And when I put it together, you can see that it's like, nice and flush now. So that's what you're looking for. And then to remove this part, what you do is you kind of put your nail under here and then slide, and then eventually it'll just come off like that. So for the magnet system, what you want to do is you want to align them on a bigger magnet like so. And when you are adding them here, what you want to do is you just want to take the magnet out from the top, keep its orientation like this, right? And then just put it in like that. So if I were to put in a bit of super glue here, all you need to do is just put in a tiny bit. So keep the same orientation, put it on top, and then squish it down. Okay, I put it in a little bit too much. So you can see like went over the top. So to get rid of that, you can use like some cloth or something. Yeah, so yeah, they're all nice and flush now. And then just leave them to dry. All right, now for these pieces, what you want to do is you want to grab this piece, right? And now, so when we were doing this piece, we were keeping it, in the same kind of polarity like this. So in this case, what you want to do is you want to actually just flip it over, and that's what you'll put on here then. So yeah, first test them to make sure that they go in nice and flat. So as you can see, this one is nice and flush with the sides of the wall. So just hold it in for a couple of seconds so that the glue kind of sets and catches it. And then just carry on with the other ones. So in this case, I find it easier to prepare the magnets in a way. So you want to take one off from the top, keep its polarity kind of the same, and then flip it over. Flip it over, and then this just guarantees that the polarity of these is like, you know, the same, then the polarity of these is the opposite direction. Alright, so I did all that, and while the glue is drying, actually forgot to mention that if you want to get these magnets out, you see the way there's like a nice slot left there. So what you can do is you can grab a knife, push it under, and then kind of rotate it to like pop the magnets out, because the super glue that I'm using is not really that great. It's just random one I bought from AliExpress, so they can easily pop out if you apply a bit of force. And the same thing is present for these as well. So you can see that if you look at it, it looks flush, but there is a section here that's like cut out, and that's so that you can stick the knife and then remove the magnets. So if you're ever, you know, reprinting the body or you're changing the body, you can always remove the magnets and then reuse them as well. Just make sure to like scrape the glue off after you remove them. Okay, so now that all of this is dry, we can start adding support for the buttons to our trackball. So what you want to do is, first of all, open it up, and I already have some wires here prepared, just kind of waiting. But all this is just basically you need to follow the wiring diagram in the README file. So it's fairly straightforward. So here, if I open this top up, you can see them connected up there. So they're connected starting basically from the bottom row, just like in the diagram. Now here, what I did was I skipped one of the pins. So this is button number 3, because I'm going to be using left click, right click, the drag scroll, and the QMK reboot. So the reboot will be if I press 2 wires together, it will actually put the controller into the boot mode, so that way you can update its firmware. And since we only have 3 buttons anyway, the reboot will kind of be hidden inside the thing. So yeah, that's just what I have here. And I have routed these wires from here going under into here, and then eventually they'll be going out of this small hole one by one. So yeah, like I said before, to remove these, what you need to do is just kind of use your fingernail to lift them up. And then to remove this one, if you can't use your fingernail, I actually left a little kind of divot here. One of the SIM removal tools. So just push it into that divot and then it just pops out like that. So yeah, very straightforward. So yeah, if you ever want to service this thing, it's very straightforward. So I'll put those aside for now. Next is the buttons. So for the buttons themselves, what we're using is just the standard Kale Chalk, kind of the mini switches. Now if you want, you can use the normal QMK or the normal Cherry MX kind of style switches. So here's an example of one. Just a normal kind of Cherry style clicky switch. And you can put these in like so. You know, it will fit any switch. But as you can see, it well, you can see the problem. It looks kind of shite. So yeah, I would recommend specifically. Oh jeez, now it's stuck in here. I recommend specifically getting the low profile switches, because they will look best. What I have done with these switches is, you'll see that we have a bit of cables going out. How this works is, in QMK, you have a row and you have a column, right? So all of the switches need to be connected to a single row, which is the GP12 on the microcontroller. So this is why I have this sort of setup here, because each switch will be connecting to each other. So this is almost like, you know, a straight line or whatever. And then this will be going directly to the microcontroller itself. Whereas these will go to each switch. So that's why it's like this. Now, to set this one up properly, I am going to use like a couple of extenders because this is not long enough to reach the other side. All right, so I'm gonna extend this main wire just like a raw extension. And then for the others, these are the ground connections, or the row connections, but you can sort of think of them as the ground connections. So in this case, I'm just gonna extend them with these cables here. And you want to do this now because it'll be more difficult to do this later. So yeah. Now you just want to feed all of these cables or all these wires through here. And then when you're putting this thing in place, it actually doesn't really matter the orientation, but what I go for is just to have it kind of like this, you know, have it down. But since these keyboards are all kind of the same square, it doesn't matter the orientation. But if you're using the kind of different keycaps, it might matter for you. Now, this next section is going to be a little bit tricky because we need to wire up a bunch of wires together, or a bunch of switches together. So yeah, the problem here is we have two kind of switches on top of each other, and it's a little bit difficult to get them all sorted. Yeah, so in this case, what I like to do is I like to grab one of these kind of ground wires or whatever, and I want to connect it up to this top switch here. Now, the second one of these, the connections here, is going to be going to one of these. All right, so instead of messing around with it, since I know I'm going to be using this, you know, for the foreseeable future, what I did was I soldered these two switches right into each other, then followed by the wire here. So I actually took it out, and it looks like it's no longer long enough. Yeah, so I'll need I'll need to use an extender here now, unfortunately. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to route this black cable over to this side so that it's easier to connect there. But yeah, now all the switches should be connected. Well, they will be when I plug this cable in, but all right, so now has come the fun bit where we actually route all of these cables. So how this goes on is you will probably want to leave it open, and then you would want to slide this thing on top like so. So yeah, it slides on like this, and this is by design so that it moves, because as you can see, it like locks in. So there's like a nice thing here that locks in, and then, you know, you can slide it. But anyway, now that we're here, you see this tiny hole. So you want to rotate it as much as possible, and then you want to feed all of these wires through that tiny hole. Now, and then you can use your fingers or the other tool to bring it up. So you see the way we're bringing it up from that tiny hole through this hole in the case. So yeah, as you can see here, there is a hole here in the case, and this is what allows you to kind of like slide back and forward. And it also allows all these wires to go through. This is just for, you know, a nice clean appearance. So now that they're all through the hole, we can actually put the head back on. Like so. Just mind it here, you know. Just kind of like the magnets will help you out a little bit, or they should in theory. Yeah, there we go. So now that it's fully in, so you can see the way it can rotate, and it won't actually fall out because the wires are also holding it in, which might not be great, but you know, you can replace them easily. But yeah, anyway, this is how it is right now. Yeah, so you can actually put the cover on as well right now. So yeah, this just is a friction fit. Now you want to make sure that the trackball still works. So yeah, I can see that it's moving okay, and that all of the lights are lighting up okay. So that means we haven't damaged anything, which is good. Now we can continue with the next step, which is routing all these wires. Now, I recommend that you use different colors for each pin, and then write down somewhere which of the colors you're using. So in my case, for example, I just have this note here where GP13 is the row, and that's yellow. GP12 is black, that's column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. So in our case, we aren't going to be using column 3 because that's the middle click. We're going to be using the drag scroll instead, which is that. So we want to hook up the yellow. So now, at this point, this button is fully hooked up. And we can test that by plugging it into the laptop. And then, you know, moving the mouse and holding the button, and then see if you can highlight anything. And I can see that I can click on the page and it works just fine. So that means that button is connected properly. Right, so the next button we're going to be connecting is column 2, which is the white one. Now in this case, this button actually comes out here. So we want to fish this white cable through to the other side. Managed to connect them here, like so. Now, the last cable is going to be our gray cable, which is going to connect to this piece here. But before we do that, we want to connect up the row cable here. So between this button and this button. So there's just like a tiny bit of wire here, unfortunately. But yeah, I still need to find it. I need to connect it, I mean. All right. So yeah, here I connected, you know, the row cable from here all the way to here. So next one is we're gonna need to connect the direct switch from here, from this gray cable to this white cable. These two wires together, so the yellow and the black, it should put this thing into the boot mode. We can actually try all of this out right now, since all the buttons should be working. So if I bring over the laptop here, should be able to see some of the screen. But anyway, if I hook it up, just check if it's working. You can see my mouse cursor here. I can double click, you know, to select. You can see that it's working there. I can right click. And then if I hold down this, I can scroll, and you can see the page is scrolling. So all the buttons are working right now. And as you can see, if I touch these two cables together, the trackball turns red, which means it's in the bootloader mode. So right now, this will show up as a Raspberry Pi device, and then you can copy over the firmware and it will update the firmware. So that's the point of those two anyway. So now we need to tidy up all of this stuff. So this one is fairly easy. You just kind of, you know, shove it in here, shove it under here, and it'll be fine. And then you can put, you know, the cover on top. And it's as if nothing ever happened. And you can still move these around like so. All right, so these are a little bit more tricky. So we are gonna keep these two in the air for now. And then these two, we can just kind of, you know, shove them down. What I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna grab a bit of, elastic band. Like here, just like a nice small one. And I'm gonna couple these together. I'm gonna show you why in a second now. Now you could actually use a bit of hot glue here if you want, but I could not be bothered. So I'm just gonna keep looping these around. Yeah, something like this. So now that they're kind of, you know, together, and so if for some reason you aren't using my raw HID router, instead of opening this up and then, you know, holding the button, what you can simply do is just touch these two with a screwdriver. Okay, well, touch them with the conductive screwdriver, I suppose. Let me see. So here's like a piece of solder wire, that will do anyway. So yeah, just touch them together, and you can see it goes into boot mode then. So that's a lot easier to deal with than opening up that thing and then holding the button, because like I don't know why holding the button is like it's just so annoying, man. But anyway, once you're done flashing, you just kind of put this in here. Now try to avoid them touching anything here, but it should in theory be fine. And then put this cover on top. And there you go. You can see you have a perfectly assembled trackpad here, like so, and then you can adjust your positions like this. So that was the idea of that anyway. And if you want to update the firmware, but again you're not using QMK router, what you can do is just simply open this up and then touch it with the screwdriver, and then that's it. You are done. The last thing now is, which I probably should have told you guys at the start, but is to add the non-slip feet. There's actually two on each side. You know, the feet will stop it from moving, which is the kind of idea behind the feet, I suppose. So the restress for this thing looks like this. There's like a nice cutout here. So when you put it, you know, kind of like goes straight in, and then, you know, it's much more comfortable you doing it this way. Now this is printed from TPU, and it's also using, you know, the mouse feet, but this is printed at 5%, and the walls are 1, so you only have one wall here, and one wall at the bottom. This way it's like, it's a little bit squishy. Like if you were to squish it with your hands, it is quite squishy, but if you were to put your wrist weight on it, it doesn't really squish at all. It's more kind of like, I suppose, kind of like a soft support, where it doesn't feel like you're, you know, putting your hand on a rock. It just feels like you're putting your hand on kind of, I suppose, I don't know, not even moss. Like it'll be firmer than moss, but like really thick moss or something like that. Either way, try it out. Print it at 5%. If you don't like it, print it at like 10 or something. probably wouldn't go lower than 5 because there won't be enough internal structure then to support it. So yeah, thank you boys for watching, and I'll see you in another one.